On the phone with us this morning, we have Mr. John Devaney. He is the president of the Washington State Tree Fruit Association, which is just, right down the street. And good morning, John. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could start out right as, how's the cherry harvest doing? And, in all this heat, how are we doing? What are you hearing from growers these days?
Well, it is a lot hotter than we're used to at this time of year, as anyone can tell you. Growers of tree fruit are used to hot temperatures here in this part of the state, but it's not normal to have them this early in the season. Normally, fruit likes warm temperatures. Yeah. This extreme heat is a little much, and it requires making some adjustments both for the quality of the fruit and the safety of the workers. We are used to those 100-plus degree temperatures later in the season, and so this is not something that growers are unprepared for, but it's something that we've had to start taking measures around earlier in the year. That can include making sure that there's more water available for workers, taking more frequent breaks, and shifting harvest times. We're seeing a lot of cherry growers actually picking with lanterns overnight rather than in the heat of the day, for example.
Consumers see any of that? I mean, will we see any change in price because of that? Will there be any change in the taste of the cherry because of the heat? Anything like that?
Well, we are very good as an industry about really only sending the fruit that meets high-quality standards to market. If there's any fruit that gets damaged by sun, you're likely to see it not get shipped. So consumers should still see an adequate supply of cherries at the stores, and it should still be of very high quality. It does mean that we may end up picking slightly less than we would have before this extreme heat event, though.
Well, I've already tasted them, and they're tasting very good. So I've had some Rainiers. They're wonderful, like every year, consistent.
They are very good, yes.
Yeah, that's sincere. Well, just call it natural flambeing, right? Cherries, jubilees.
I've had to explain to a lot of folks that plants and people are very similar. They like warm weather, but when it gets too hot, they can get sunburned and they slow down their activity. So we can see the fruit growth slow down a little bit, and we can see some fruit get damaged at the top of the trees from the really intense sun and heat, which can reduce what total fruit gets harvested.
How are we looking on the world stage in terms of trade partners and all that goes into tree fruit and agriculture? Are we up to where we need to be?
Well, there's still a lot of work to do on getting a completely fair and level playing field with all of our trading partners. I think that is going to be a multi-decade effort. We've seen a lot of intense negotiations over the past few years, and those issues have not been completely resolved. So there are still some tariff barriers and some non-tariff barriers that are impeding access to markets. That's more like a headwind than a wall, though. So we're still sending a lot of cherries to China and some other key Asian markets, even as we continue to negotiate with their government for better access terms.
We're talking with John Devaney, president of the Washington State Tree Fruit Association. John, there was the farmers had complained a couple of years ago in some instances about President Trump's standoff with China and all of that. Has that seemed to ease now that he's out of office, or as the politics of that change anything in terms of our trade?
There are still a lot of unresolved issues with China. I think that President Trump got a lot of the blame or credit, depending on how you want to phrase it, for pushing renegotiation of our trading terms with China to the top of the agenda. But there is bipartisan desire among our elected officials to improve some of the terms of our trading relationship with China. We are a very rules-based system, and their government and system doesn't always work quite the same way. So there are still some improvements in our trading relationship that needs to happen. They are a large market. They like a lot of our agricultural products. We still ship a lot of product there. But as we negotiate those other terms, it can create impediments to getting as much access to that market as we would like.
Gotcha. What about labor? We know that California was running late. There are folks who were having trouble finding some workers, greater reliance on H-2A, that sort of thing. And I guess my question, given that, is the workers that come up that aren't H2A, do they stay here for our other tree fruits to follow, or do they zip back down to California for other fruits and then come back up, or how does that work?
It can vary. There is fewer folks wanting to work in agriculture in a tight labor market, just because of its seasonal nature. And if you want to think about working outdoors, this current weather is a good reminder of why some people may choose to transition into 40 hours a week in air conditioning kind of jobs.
I was one of them.
And so we were seeing a labor shortage before COVID-19 and the labor market disruptions there, and we are continuing to see that. There's a lot of pressure at some of the lower rungs of the economic ladder, those entry-level service jobs, including agriculture, light manufacturing, other sectors that don't require as much formal education to enter the labor market. There's a lot of competition for those workers right now. Anyone who drives through Yakima is going to see a lot of help wanted signs out there, and farmers are in the same position.
Well, we knew the cherry crop was looking good from published reports heading into the harvest season, but I have not read or seen much about our other tree fruits, our peaches, pears, apples. What's the overview there?
We're looking at a crop that will be of good size, probably not a record by any means this year. We're probably going to see a crop in the 125, 130 kind of range for apples, which is a good supply, but it's lower than it has been in a few years. And that will help with pricing, we're hoping. And a key thing that our growers are really pleased about is that throughout the pandemic, we saw a large demand for fresh fruit. More consumers were thinking about their health and making good food choices. More people were eating out of the grocery store. We like our friends in the restaurant business, but more people are likely to buy whole apples, pears, and cherries at the grocery store than at a restaurant. So people packing their own lunches and preparing foods at home is helpful for our tree fruit industry here in the state.
I made fewer trips to the cheeseburger tree myself, so I can I could relate.
Biggest market for our cherries still China? Is that where we're sending a good majority?
Yeah, China and Canada, it remains an important market. I think whenever we think about tree fruit, especially for apples and pears, it's also important to remember that Mexico is our number one export market for apples and pears. We often think in terms of the labor market in our trading relationship with Mexico and workers who come north to work here, but we often overlook the fact that they're also our biggest customers.